Just like people, the best thing that you can feed an animal is a properly balanced, fresh, whole food diet. We all know from our own health, the more fresh food we eat and the less processed food we eat, the better. The same is true for our dogs and our cats. The hang up is there is no way, there's no getting around the fact that kibble and canned food is ultra processed food. It just is. And it brings with it all of the baggage that processed food brings.
You.
Good. It's so great to see you.
You too. I missed you. It's been a minute.
It really has. We're not that far away, but somehow we always are.
Yeah, I know. Well, I haven't actually been in California a time, just sort of popping in, popping out. But I am just, to let, I don't know, 1,000 people know where I'm going to be in December. I'm going to be in California for a good few weeks. So I'm really excited to be able to be home.
Well,
Uh,
welcome home.
yeah. So are you up in Northern Cal? Are you at the office right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yay, amazing. Well, I know we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about this
Yep.
today, and as well as your other book. But I gave, it's not a proper intro because there's so much more to what you do in terms of your background, your experience, your training. Maybe you can share that with the audience. I just really wanted to give people a reminder because I know we've been on before, but just a reminder of who you are in our life and in the lives of many others that we love. There's Elena saying hi, Gary, and how much you've helped our babies, Giz and Jez, Gizmo and Jezebel, but also Baxter and Parker. They'll be lining up to get some of these treatments that you talk about, particularly in this book and the other one too. So I'm going to hand it over to you to share about your experience and your passion. How we're here today.
Terrific. Well, thanks so much for having me back. It's always
Uh,
fun chatting with you.
Yes, no, your family. Definitely.
Yeah. So by way of background, obviously my name's Gary Richter. I'm a veterinarian up in the Bay Area, so the East Bay specifically. We're in Oakland. I've been a veterinarian here for a little over 25 years, and for a lot of that time, I've been doing holistic and integrative medicine. So what that really means is that in my office, we practice both conventional Western medicine, so the kind of medicine that you would get at just about any veterinary hospital you went to. But then we also offer what I would consider sort of the other half of medicine, acupuncture, chiropractic, herbal therapy, regenerative medicine like hyperbaric oxygen, ozone therapy, stem cell therapy. We do physical therapy. We do all manner of holistic and complementary therapies. Because to me, what I have found over decades of practice is that when you take natural medicine, holistic medicine, and you combine it with conventional Western medicine, you get something that is much greater than the sum of the parts. That's when you really start to see miracles happen in medicine. All of these various modalities have something to offer. And really the key is in understanding what is the best option to exercise and when. So that's really what I do, what my office does on a regular basis. And within the context of what we're talking about today, I have in the past few years become very, very interested in this new field, which Serena, you are very well aware of, longevity science. And longevity science, for people who don't know, is really the science looking at unlocking the biological mechanics that make us and our pets age. Aging isn't really a mystery to us anymore. It's a series of biological processes that happen in our body. And what we're finding is that either with certain preventative measures or certain interventional measures, we can slow, interrupt, and sometimes even reverse these biological processes that lead to aging. And most people who study this kind of science are quite optimistic that within a relatively short handful of years, we will have actually solved aging as a medical problem, which is beyond fascinating and exciting. And needless to say, 99.9% of the people who are looking at this are doing it with people in mind. Almost nobody is thinking about our animals, our pets, that sort of thing. And I mean, that to me was the reason that I really got involved in the longevity community. I'm sure I'm interested for my health and the health of my friends and my family, but I really stepped into this world to say, okay, what can I take that's being done in humans and adapt it to veterinary care? Because if we're going to live longer, I think we would all like to live that time longer with our pets, and give everybody more and better years to come. So that's really where I come from. As you were just generous enough to show, I've recently written a couple of books, Longevity for Dogs and Longevity for Cats. They really are a good look at longevity science, where it sits today, how it applies to our dogs and our cats. And I've written it in such a way that whether you are a medical professional or a completely non-medically trained person, that this is going to make sense to you. Because it's important that it's accessible to everyone.
Yes, and I just wanted to add to that, one of the beautiful things that Gary does is Dr. Gary. Gary to me, I like to refer to him as Dr. Gary here. Is that he really distills the complexities of what goes into that part of caretaking when it comes to longevity for our fur babies, for our dogs and our cats, in a way that makes it easy for us to understand as pet owners. He makes it simple. In addition to the book, he also has a line of products that are very supportive for, across the board. I noticed that someone here had asked about dog food, had asked about some of the freeze dried raw food. I'm sure towards the end of this, Dr. Gary can answer some of those questions.
Sure.
But what I just want to sort of um, really emphasize is that Gary has been, one of the leading experts in the space of veterinary health, holistic veterinary health. And I was taking it to this level where, as he said, I'm in the longevity space, partner with Dr. David St. Clair. So clearly we know what we can do for people. And and not only are our fur babies part of our family, but just what they do for us actually equally extends. We extend each other's longevity. That type of relationship between our pets, our fur babies, our fur family, and us. It's actually one of the biggest topics that we talk about when it comes to longevity and that mental, emotional health and well-being, and having community and companionship and relationships, whether they're with people or our fur babies, contributes to our longevity as well, and vice versa. How much we love on them, how much we take care of them, and that energy also contributes to theirs. So I just wanted to really highlight the fact that he's sort of a pioneer in this space to bring that attention to, what we've sort of just been focused on in terms of people, and making it digestible, easy to understand, something that you can follow along, simple things that you can do right now for your babies. So I don't know, Gary, if there are specific sections that you'd like to point out, or if you want to answer some of the questions that people have already been popping up through the chat for you.
Sure. Let's talk sort of in broad strokes about the outline of the book, so people sort of understand how that's laid out, and then probably let's just get to some questions. So, as far as the books go, the way I did is I laid this out, sort of in the format of a pyramid of longevity, if you will, from the perspective of what is foundational, what needs to be at the base of this pyramid, and we kind of work our way up. I start with an explanation of what are called the hallmarks of longevity, which are these actual biomechanical processes that are happening in everybody's body all the time that ultimately will lead to aging in some fashion or another. So
Mhm.
that way, as I go through the book and describe all of these various things in this pyramid of longevity that you can do to improve your pet's quality and quantity of life, we can talk in specifics about which one or ones of these various hallmarks of longevity we're actually affecting. I mean, we're going to do this in a very methodical way. It's not a vaporous thing. I'll do this and it'll get better. It's a do this and you will affect this biological process that will lead to this outcome. So that said, starting from the bottom of this pyramid, The first three things that you can do to help your dog or your cat live a longer, better life are things that you can very easily do at home. And you don't need me, and you don't need a veterinarian. What you need to think about is diet, exercise, and lifestyle for your pet. Super easy things, non-medical, no educational, requirement here. So diet, as Serena, as you talk all the time with people about the importance of good nutrition, it is exactly the same for pets. The problem is that the advice that most people are getting about what is best to feed their pets may not really be kind of the best thing out there. And that is unfortunate. And what I mean by that is, just like people, the best thing that you can feed an animal is a properly balanced, fresh, whole food diet. We all know from our own health, the more fresh food we eat and the less processed food we eat, the better. The same is true for our dogs and our cats. The hang up is there is no way, there's no getting around the fact that kibble and canned food is ultra processed food. It just is. And it brings with it all of the baggage that processed food brings. And then we're asking our pets not only to eat this food, but to eat it every single day of their lives. And then
Yes.
we all scratch our heads several years down the road why these animals come up with chronic inflammatory conditions and get cancer early and have all these medical problems, when in reality, we've been feeding them substandard food for their entire life. So step one, fresh whole food diet. Now, we could spend 2 hours talking about this, but the bottom line is fresh food can look like something you would buy, frozen, frozen cooked, frozen raw, freeze dried raw, all really good options. You can also make food for your pets. And the only caveat there is you have to work off of a recipe so that you know that you're feeding them balanced food. So that's food. So diet, exercise. Just like with us as people, getting an appropriate amount of exercise is critical, not only to physical health, but to psychological and emotional health. The thing that people need to realize is that depending on what kind of pet you have, their exercise requirements are going to be different based on breed, age, personality, physical conditions, what have you. So the example that I normally give people is if you have an Australian Shepherd and somebody else has an English Bulldog, those two dogs are going to have very different exercise requirements. You cannot take your English Bulldog out for a 6-hour hike. It probably will not go well. Similarly, if you take your Australian Shepherd out for a 10-minute walk and then leave them home all day, they're going to go nuts. So you have to understand who your dog or your cat is and get them an appropriate amount of exercise, which means not under exercising them, but also not over exercising them.
Right.
Over exercising them will lead to injury and joint problems down the road. So just like with people who were, say, competitive athletes when they were younger, most of those people are going to pay for that later because they overdid it and they sustained injuries. So this is the balance that we're running with our pets. And then so diet, exercise, lifestyle. That's the last thing, is trying to set up our pet's life environment so that it is, relatively speaking, low stress. Everybody's going to have a stressful day. It's not that your dog can't ever have a bad day, but our dogs basically live in our environment and people, which means that as people, we need to tailor our environment to be a relatively low stress environment, both for our own health as well as for our dog's health. And that includes both how the dog is interacting with, but also how you are interacting with other people in your house. If you
Yes.
think your dog or your cat is not affected by you fighting with your spouse or your child, you have another thing coming. So all of this plays into longevity and really the foundations of longevity for our pet. Once you get beyond that, that's when, for me, things get more interesting. They also get a little bit more technical. Now we have to start to look at things like medical procedures for animals, as far as like what's really good and what's really not so good for them as it pertains to spay and neuter, vaccinations, antibiotic use, flea and tick control, all manner of things that happen in Western medicine. Many of them are very, very good for animals, but sometimes things don't always work out as well as we intend. And sometimes it's the timing of when these things are done that are critical to longevity. Moving on from that, we get into supplements. So vitamin and mineral supplements, herbal supplements, and how they specifically interact with hallmarks of longevity, pharmaceuticals, medical interventions like stem cell therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. All of these things play an incredibly important role in sort of this ultimate goal that we have to help our pets live longer and better lives. It's all laid out in the book. So, in very specific detail for people who are interested. But, I don't want to spend the whole time we have kind of hammering away on these details. If we could answer some more specific questions that people have. So why don't we do that? And then, maybe we could, I'm sure people have questions about food and supplements, so we can talk about that too.
Yeah, there's definitely, and thank you for that, Gary. There's some people who are asking about where you can buy the book. Here would the best place be Amazon and your website
Yeah,
to
Amazon is ultimately Amazon's the easiest.
Mhm.
You can get it as a physical hard copy, an ebook, or there are audio versions of both books as well.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. He made it very accessible. And I thought that was really important, Gary, how you're kind of laying the foundation so people do know what to expect. In this book, it's again an emphasis on lifestyle and that it's about the foundation is lifestyle by nutrition, so there's nutrition first. I know you have like as a different pillar
Yeah,
up the pyramid. I really feel that your choices when it comes to what you put in your body and your pet's body, that's all really lifestyle, exercise, all of it. And I
sure.
and I just want to kind of make that as a call out because so often people think that the therapies that not everyone has access to, some things that we talked about, whether it's V cells, stem cells. I mean, these type of therapies are very helpful, but it's really about what Gary said in terms of the core. The core is the nutrition, the right food, supplements, lifestyle, and of course that environment. So, Gary, so many people want to know about diet. They want to know about, the diet recipes, how people can start their pets off on some whole foods.
Sure. And I love that question, because I think at the end of the day, and I tell people this all the time, you can spend all the money in the world and all of these really high end therapeutics for your pet to live longer. And if you're not doing that basic diet, exercise, lifestyle, we're not getting anywhere,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
you're basically asking your pet's body to do something without giving it the nutrients and the energy that it needs to do it.
Yep.
So diet has got to be the beginning of all of these conversations. So that said, as I mentioned before, properly balanced fresh whole food diet. So again, um, it's an either buy it or make it sort of situation. uh you know Either one is fine, and frankly, a combination of them are fine. The bottom line with buy it or make it really often comes down to this sort of age old question of what's worth more to me right now, my time or my money. And in my life, it just depends on the time and the conversation about which one of those things happens to be true. But the bottom line is it's certainly logistically much easier to buy food that's ready to go. Um, but on a meal per meal basis, you can do it less expensively if you do it yourself. It's just going to take you some time. But if you're going to go out and buy food, like I say, there are fresh foods out there that you can buy frozen, lightly cooked. There's foods out there that you can buy frozen raw. There's freeze dried foods out there. I've got a line of pet food called Nutra Complete, which is freeze dried raw food. I am very, very pleased with it. I formulated it with some very, very bright people. We've seen some amazing, amazing results, both from the standpoint of how dogs and cats are doing on it, but also from the perspective of acceptability, like how palatable it is. Boy, it's hard to find a dog or a cat that doesn't like this food. So I've been really happy with NutriComplete as an option. The other nice thing about freeze dried raw is you pretty much get all of the benefits of a fresh whole food diet with the convenience of feeding the dry food. No freezer space, doesn't weigh anything. It's got good shelf life. So it's got all those convenience factors, but you don't have all the baggage of the processed food. So I think that for me, when I give people recommendations as far as what to do, what to feed their dogs, supplements, what have you, what I always tell them is whatever you do, it has to be sustainable in your life. If it's too expensive or if it's too big of a pain in the butt and you're not going to do it, then there's no point in me making that recommendation because it's not doing your dog any good if it doesn't, if you're not going to follow through. So freeze dried food works out great because it's really easy for people to follow through, but yet they get all the benefits.
And that's a great point. Some people are asking some specific questions about the diet. Uh, when we talk about whole foods, and it's not just plant based. Of course, there's proteins that are good for your animals too. I just
Sure.
don't want people to get confused that it's not that they eat what we eat. It's what we eat is going to be different. And so, Gary, I think there's some questions that are in the chat just about what is it that people need to think about when they are cooking food or maybe like bulking the food if they wanted to add some fresh food in with
Sure.
dry. What are some key nutrients and key ratios that they should look for? And I know the information is in the book as well, you guys, but we can give you some right now.
Sure, of course. So, just as it pertains to the book, so my first book that I wrote a few years ago, which is called The Ultimate Pet Health Guide, which is
Mhm.
also on Amazon, has 25 recipes for dogs and 25 recipes for cats in it. So there's 50 recipes in there for people who are just looking for recipes. So that's an easy solution. But to your question, um, when I talk about fresh whole food diets for pets, I mean, in all honesty, with a couple of exceptions, dogs and cats can eat just about anything people are eating as far as like food items go. And most people are already aware of the exceptions, things like grapes, raisins, chocolate, onions, things of that nature, and pretty much anything that's seasoned. So we want to stay away from
Correct.
spicy things. But other than that, pretty much across the board, meat and vegetables are going to be fine for dogs and cats. Um, the difference between, say, us and them is just the general amounts of, say, proteins versus plant materials that they're really ideally designed to have. So, as humans, this is a perhaps an off-topic conversation, but as humans, I mean, we're omnivores that probably evolutionarily speaking lean herbivorous. I think evolutionarily speaking, we're probably designed to eat a little bit of meat, but not much. When we look at a dog, I look at a dog as an omnivore that is more carnivorously. So this is an animal that is designed to eat anything, but is also very well equipped to eat a fairly high protein diet. And then when you move into cats, cats are more what we would call an obligate carnivore. So, as a colleague of mine once said, you will never see a lion drag home an ear of corn. That this is not a thing that cats do. Generally speaking, the only plant material cats are getting happens to be whatever was in the critter that they're currently eating.
Mhm.
So, so that's kind of what we have to look at. So, when it comes to like, what do I feed them? Um, this is where having a recipe really helps because there is no way to sort of eyeball, I'm going to put some meat and vegetables in a bowl and call it good. You just can't do it. For short-term feeding, it's fine. For supplemental feeding, like adding a little bit of meat and vegetables to an otherwise balanced diet, it's fine. If anything more than, say, 20% of what your dog or your cat is eating is homemade food, you really ought to make sure that it's balanced with the right food ingredients and the right vitamin and mineral supplements that you will have to add to balance that out. There's really no practical way to do this at home without adding supplements. So realize that any recipe you look at is going to have supplements that you need to add to it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you made that call out, Gary, because I was going to do the same. So, they can, as Gary said, they can mostly, and especially if your animals are a bit younger, of course, over time, sometimes they can develop maybe kidney, renal, liver, some issues. Our dogs, our babies had those issues, and so maybe they had to take you have to taper down some intakes of the different categories of food. But across the board, as Gary was saying, you need to add supplements if you're cooking the food yourself. And there are recipes. Gary's got it in his books. And you can look that up. And of course, you'll have to have it tailored to your pet and the breed that they are. But just to keep that in mind. And yes, they can have, I would say, the same quality of food would be ideal. So would you have those same that same quality of meat? Would you have the same type of vegetables. Would you choose organic for yourself? That's what you
Sure.
choose for your fur babies as well. But their nutrient needs are going to vary from ours, and there are supplements in the form of powders and such that are very good for our fur family. And Gary, please, I know that we're talking about the books right now, but I would love for you to share. Gary has a whole line of products and tools for our fur family. And, just so he's so humble, just mention it a little.
I will. Okay. So my company, Ultimate Pet Nutrition, which you can find at ultimatepetnutrition.com, we have a whole line of supplements for dogs and for cats, as well as the Food Complete that I was mentioning. And they're really, the supplements are designed to provide nutritional and herbal support to pets for any manner of reasons, ranging from just sort of general health and wellness to joint health to skin related issues to immune support, um, uh, gut health, what have you.
Hmm.
The one thing that I will say, and this is sort of important within the context of what we're discussing, as far as supplements for fresh food diets. So, what a lot of people want to do is they want to make a fresh food diet, and then they want to buy kind of a one size fits all supplement to add whatever it needs. And it's important for people to realize that that does not exist.
Yeah.
And the reason it does not exist is because, not surprisingly, all food ingredients have different nutritional components, right? So if person A puts together a recipe and person B puts together a recipe with totally different food ingredients, those recipes are going to have different nutritional profiles and thus will need to be supplemented differently. So there's no way to make a supplement that covers anybody's homemade diet. If you see a supplement out there that advertises that, it's disingenuous. And please don't believe it. There are, however, companies out there that will give you a recipe and then sell you like a one and done supplement for that recipe. That's totally fine because that supplement is made for that recipe. So absolutely do that. But otherwise, what you would need to do is buy whatever number of supplements the recipe tells you to buy, mix them all together, and then feed it. It's fine either way. Again, you just have to figure out what is most logistically doable for you.
Yeah. And there's some questions at Gary that Scott, one of our biggest supporters from Australia, asked usually asks quite a few great questions. And one of them was just about, of course, about an NAD precursors, but for animals. I can answer that question, but I would love for you to. He even asked about Cert 6, and I thought, well, if we're going to talk longevity, let's address some key uh longevity molecules, since he asked. And I know that that gets into supplements and specific longevity molecules, but we might as well answer them since we're talking about longevity
Yeah, no,
molecules.
that's a great question, and I go through a lot of those supplements in the book. You brought up NAD precursors; those are great ones.
Hmm.
In fact, our sort of cornerstone nutritional product, which is called NutriThrive, which is a kind of a broad spectrum supplement for both dogs and cats. We're actually in the process of reformulating it, which will in part be the inclusion of NR into that formula. So that's the thing that's getting addressed. There are certainly other, shall we say, more mundane supplements that have direct effect on hallmarks of longevity. Um,
Well,
various
let's
by
let's call them easily accessible.
yes,
Let's
that's
call
much
them
better.
easily accessible. Other stuff, and you guys, it's on page 135
Oh, there
of
you
the
go.
quarter of his book. So I highly recommend you guys get on now and order the book. So they and it what Gary does is, again, he breaks down each of these molecules in the supplements, from the more commonly found to the ones that are maybe less accessible. And you guys know that I support a company that has NAD precursors. Until Gary has his that are ready in his line, you can get those for your dogs there. That's a different company. But there's pages of everything from probiotics to sulforaphane. Our babies ate that broccoli sprouts, in supplemental form as well. And there's so many It's an entire chapter that would be very, very helpful for you guys when you get the book. So, and then are you still there, Gary? You froze for a
Yeah,
second.
no, I'm still
Yeah.
here.
Okay, cool. So, and so people wanted to know about that diet supplements. I think that'll be helpful. And you know, just your thoughts on what we consider biohacking for our pets. It's so new. You are one of the pioneers in the space, and I think it's great for them to hear from you. You know what is accessible now and what you see coming that they can prepare their fur family for, especially by getting their baselines down now.
Great question. So, I think when we're talking about biohacking, I mean, to me, that becomes a combination of both therapeutics, so things that you can do that will make a difference, but also diagnostics from the standpoint of what can we measure
Yes.
so we can quantify how good our treatments are, how effective our treatments are, so we can make adjustments as needed. Because you know what I mean, nobody's body's the same as anybody else's. So like what works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. So if we can quantify what's working and what's not, that's incredibly helpful. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is really looking at what's available what's available out there for animals testing wise, that's a little off the beaten path. So I mean, anybody can go to their regular veterinarian and get standard blood work done, CBC, chemistry, urinalysis, that sort of thing. And that's all great, that's all useful information, but we need to look further than that. So some of the things that we're doing in my office on a regular basis, we're looking at certain vitamin and mineral levels, vitamin D, B vitamins, magnesium levels. We're looking at markers of inflammation. We're looking at omega fatty acid levels. We are looking at epigenetic age testing as a means of measuring efficacy of our treatment success. We're doing testing for genetic markers so we can see what any individual animal may have a genetic predisposition to disease wise, so we can prepare for that and keep an eye on that and thus intervene at the earliest possible opportunity should that arise. So, these are the things that we have to think about when we're thinking about biohacking is how do we measure how well it's working? And then, what do we do to make that difference? So in that sense, we've already talked about a lot of that. And there are going to be certain sort of, shall we say, one size fits all things for patients. Clearly the diet, exercise, lifestyle conversation. Although even within that, there are variations to the individual. But the supplements that I've listed in the book, there's more than 30 of them. The way that I've set it up in the book is that there's a chart in the book that kind of lists out all of the supplements and all of the therapeutic interventions and which hallmarks of longevity they touch upon. So instead of like, nobody's recommending that, for example, you give your dog or your cat 30 supplements every day for the rest of its life. Thank you for finding that. So no, you're not supposed to give 30 supplements every day. What you're supposed to do is pick a handful of supplements and rotate through over time. Just like if you were going to go see an integrative or a longevity doctor for yourself, that's what they would do is you get stacking of supplements, of peptides, of meds. So I'll take some now for a month or so, and then I'll move into other ones, and then I'll move into other ones. Realize that evolutionarily speaking, nobody's body evolves seeing the same thing every day. That's not how our bodies are built. So we shouldn't be eating the same thing every day. We shouldn't be taking the same supplements every day. So we rotate through to kind of give the body different nutrients at different times and allow it to respond in the way that it's biologically supposed to respond.
Yeah, and I love that you again emphasize how there's rotation and how you have to work with how the body is responding to different, whether it's regenerative or interventional and proactive therapies, or just with the diet and supplement. It's very much how we are as people. You know, as a practitioner, it's the same thing. Run a bunch of labs, get all these biomarkers, figure out what your lifestyle is, And
Yeah.
then you get a protocol, but that protocol is not forever. That protocol is sort of how we gauge where you are for the next few months, to maybe half year, depending. And you run tests. So Gary pretty much does the same thing with animals, which is incredible. And there were some questions about acupuncture. Dr. Gary is also trained uh, in that modality as well. If you wanted to share about that.
Sure. I mean, I love acupuncture as a modality. It's the first sort of non-Western modality that I was officially trained in. And I'll tell you, 20 plus years later, I'm still routinely amazed by the changes that we see in these animals. So, I mean, what do we treat with acupuncture? I mean, a lot of what we're treating in my office is arthritis, back soreness, kidney disease, chronic gastrointestinal issues, palliative care for much older animals or animals with cancer. And what we see, generally speaking, is they're a little calmer. They have a better sense of well-being. They frequently eat a little better. They move around better. It's rarely in my office do we have a patient that's receiving acupuncture alone, or quite frankly, any one thing alone, because as I mentioned before, we are very integrative. So, what we do is sort of weaving a lot of things in. But I do think acupuncture is a wonderful modality. A lot of people who haven't seen it done in animals immediately want to know, how do you get them to stand still for this? The reality is probably 9 out of 10 dogs and cats either don't care or actually love it.
They love it.
Many dogs and cats, when you put acupuncture needles in them, the first thing they do is go to sleep.
Mhm.
They immediately take a nap. Every once and again, you get one that doesn't like it. And if that's the case, again, this is all an individual thing. Maybe it's not right for that animal, but the vast majority of it's great.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is incredible. This is so great. And again, I know we're wrapping up in a few minutes here, and I just want to thank all the kind people that we have in our audience today. There's been some really great questions. And I just really want to thank again Dr. Gary, because his life's work has been in service of our fur families. And what I admire so much, Gary, is that you've been innovative. You started with the uh, Chinese medicine in terms of acupuncture for the animals, but you're looking at our fur family, our fur babies through a different set of lenses. It's you're looking at them like they're people.
Mhm.
So it's how can we give them the same level of care that we're giving each other, we're giving ourselves? How do we innovate the way we are for humanity? And I really applaud you for that. And again, so much gratitude to you for that, for being such a pioneer. You guys, this book, along with the one for cats, along with Gary's other books, these are staples that you need to have in your home if you have pets. And for anyone, even if you don't have pets because you travel so much or you're never home or whatnot, but you know people who do, this is Christmas. It's a great, and it's not just Christmas, Hanukkah, it's holiday season. It's the holiday season. It's a great time to gift the people that you love what I call tools. Tools for your toolbox for your pets. And it might not be something that you're going to read all the time, but it's going to be something that you're going to constantly reference. We do that. Go, wait, what did Gary say about this? And we'll go back and you use it like it's a reference guide. Um, that was probably redundant. A guidebook, and a reference, and you'll use it constantly. And Gary, there's more that you're doing. So if you can share a little bit about what's coming so that people can continue to follow and stay tuned, because you're creating amazing products outside of the food and supplement space. And I think people should know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I mean, to me, the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning is trying to figure out, how do I help as many animals as possible.
Mhm.
And what I kind of discovered a long time ago is there's a limit to the number of things I can see in my office on any given day.
Mhm.
And that was what led to writing books. That was what led to creating the supplements and the food. And that's what's led to, some of the other things I'm doing right now. Also, I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit called the Veterinary Cannabis Society, where we help educate veterinarians and pet owners about how to use cannabis safely. for their pets. If people are interested in that, the website for that is vcs.pet. And then I'm also in the process of creating a company that is called Pet Metrics.
Mhm.
And Pet Metrics is going to be, we're developing a biometric wearable for pets. So think of an Apple Watch, Fitbit, or Ring, what have you, for pets. So something that is going to be able to give you real time information on the health of your animal. Not only based on sort of their activity level and how much they're moving around, but also looking at their actual vital signs, what's going on the inside. Because the problem that we see with animals is so often by the time they look sick, they've been sick for a really
Yeah.
long time. And we often don't get the opportunity in animal health to intervene early stage in diseases that if we were able to do that, we'd have such a better outcome.
Yeah.
So this is a way for us to actually listen to our animals when they're talking to us. So with a little bit of luck, we should be getting ready to launch with a product probably by roughly this time next year.
Yeah. Amazing.
So
I need
so
an
things are
update.
happening.
I need an update before we're even, I mean, we'll do it offline, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
we
We'll
need a
we'll be
we
we'll
need a
be talking
serious
about that.
update. Yeah, so this is so important, you guys, because you know, the veterinarians, doctors in this field, like Gary, they have such a tough job because by the time people bring their fur family to them, they're unwell. And this new product and this company, and again, brilliant pioneer in the space, it's giving us an opportunity to give our pets preventative care. In addition to healthy food and supplements like that, that's already preventative. But to be able to see what's going on inside them in any sort of a metric is going to be um, just highly beneficial, not just to them, but to us as their owners. So Gary, you are amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you do, everything that you're doing. I really emphasize you guys go to Gary's website. There's a lot more that he's doing um, than writing books as references for us, but those are key, and you really need to have all of them. Keep them in the kitchen.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And if people are interested in pet metrics in the wearable, if they go to petmetrics.com, there's a sign up list there where you can get on our mailing list where we can send you updates.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. We definitely I want to be updated offline about this, but we should do another update when that comes.
Will do. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your great questions and always being such a supportive community. I love you guys. Thank you.